Want to say welcome, everyone. I am so glad you could be with us here today for our Lunchtime Learning webinar on building your personal brand. I'm Rachel Helms. I'm one of the assistant directors here at MTSU Alumni Relations. We have with us today Carla Fox, who is a powerhouse in our fast-growing interactive media program in the College of Media and Entertainment. I've known Professor Fox for years, and she is the real deal. She is going to break it down for us on how you can make yourself stand out in what can feel like a super congested digital world. But first, I wanted to say thank you to you, our alumni. You are a vital part of this university and to our community. Please check out mtalumni.com after this webinar. We have tons of events, promotions, and activities coming up that we would love for you to be a part of. And just a couple of housekeeping notes. You are on mute, so please go ahead and drop any questions you have in the chat. Professor Fox has allowed plenty of time for Q&A, so after her presentation, we will be sure to get to those questions. And now on to the show. Professor Fox is an expert on teaching how media, technology, real life, and storytelling intersect. She's worked for news organizations, online publications, interactive and communications companies, and has been at the forefront of web technologies like blogging and Twitter meetups. She serves as board chair of Craft Content Nashville, a collective of digital creatives focused on community, and in 2024, she co-founded Content Economy Nashville, which focuses on emerging media conversations at the local level. She currently teaches multiple courses at MTSU, including interactive media applications, social media practices, and interactive experiences. Welcome, Professor Fox.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being flexible on the time. It's funny. I actually have to go to class right after this, so I appreciate you all being flexible with your lunch hours today. This is a workshop that I actually present to our students that I've modified for you all, and it's usually one of our best attended events. So I appreciate the time with you all. I'm going to do that dreaded share my screen thing. Give me 1 second here. Uh-oh. Oh, there it is. Sorry. Okay, and play from start. There we are. Okay. The slides good, Rachel? You can see them?
Yes, it all looks great.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so let's dive in. So I think one of the biggest challenges when it comes to this idea of personal brand, and this is true, I do this a lot with my students. I say, this is a workshop on do what I say, not as I do. Because I think we get hung up. We get inside ourselves to the point that we cannot figure out how we want to present ourselves in an online space because there are just so many options out there. And so my goal through this workshop is to actually give you some practical tools. We're going to start with some things to be thinking about, different ways that you want to position yourselves depending on what it is you're trying to do with your career. And then at the end, we will get into specific tactics looking at individual platforms where you might be able to apply some of these strategies. So the first thing I want to do here is kind of try to define this to begin with, because I think personal branding sometimes has a negative connotation with it, depending on the industry. But it's really not anything that we don't all already do with our careers, or if you're searching for a job or wherever you are in that market, right? Like personal branding is just simply defining and promoting what you stand for. Who are you? That's what a personal brand is who are you? It's your experiences, it's your skills, it's your values. What differentiates you from other people who are out there? So I think we get into this concept of like personal branding is like your logo and your aesthetics and making sure that you put everything together nicely. And sure, that's part of it, but it's not the whole thing, right? And what you need to figure out professionally is who are you first? And then if you have the opportunity to add that aesthetic, add that professional polish to what it is that you're putting out there, that's great. But it's not necessarily where you start. And I think I had that problem. As I walk through this, I'm going to use myself as an example because I actually just rebranded, I guess you would say, myself about a little less than a year ago now. And I teach this, right? I've taught social media and personal branding for 7 years now, and I couldn't do it for myself. I couldn't do it. I had a mental block over how exactly I wanted to present myself online. And that's one of the strategies we're going to talk about today, is that sometimes you have to ask for help on this. And that's okay, because we get kind of inside ourselves too much and we need some external opinion. So I'll give you some strategies for that. So really what we're looking at here is, who are you, your experiences, your skills, and your values. Guess what? You have a lot of that on your resume already. And then looking at telling your own story, right? Sharing your knowledge and building connections. If you can get to that point, you're going to have a personal brand, whether you intended to have one or not, right? You want to be intentional with your personal brand, because that can lead to improved credibility, connection to your target audience. We'll talk about what that means here in just a little bit, and differentiating yourself from other people who are out there. If you make your personal brand memorable, the more you'll give people a way to remember you. And this is the challenging part. This is a line that comes from Dr. Karen Freeberg up at the University of Louisville. Your brand isn't what you say it is, it's what the public perceives it to be. That is true both for individuals and for organizations, right? And that's where things get tricky, because you can do everything in your best power to present yourself in one particular way, but if it comes off as inauthentic, the public's going to see through that, right? Your peers or whoever it is you're trying to reach out to, who your audiences are. I mean, it's true with organizations, right? That they say that they support one thing and then in reality they don't, or they have two different, they're very polished in one aspect and they're kind of silly on a certain aspect of social media, and you kind of go, that doesn't jive, right? Those things happen all of the time. So it's a challenging thing to let go of control in that way, but there's no way around it, right? You can do everything in your power to control this thing. But it's really up to what other people see as to what your personal brand is. So really all of that mumbo jumbo boils down to 3 questions. So let me make this a lot easier than that whole list of bullet points. Who are you? Who do you serve? How can you help? That's it. That's your personal brand. Who are you? Who do you serve? And how can you help? And if you can answer those 3 questions clearly, you have a personal brand, whether you believe you have one or not. So let's unpack each of these questions, because I think this is actually a really, really fun process. So let's start with, who are you? This is a fun one to do with undergraduate students because they don't know. And so this is an assignment in one of my classes. So congratulations, you're getting homework again. You didn't know that was happening. What I want you to do, these are very, very personal questions, okay? And take this list of questions and answer them for yourself. And here's the thing. Some of them you might actually have to go talk to people that you trust about. Okay. So the first thing is, how would you define yourself? List 5 words that capture who you are as a person. And when I give these instructions to my students, I say, you do the exercise first. And then what I want you to do is to go talk to people and see what they say. If you had to describe me in one word, what word would you say? What's the first word that comes to mind when you think of me? Are those terrifying questions to ask? Yes, they are. I realize that. So ask people that you trust, right? People that are in your circle, people who you work with closely. I tell my students to talk to their peers, but also to ask a faculty member, right? What's that one word? And jot all of that down. Along those same lines, how do others describe you, right? So that's a similar kind of thing there. What experiences have helped define you as a person and a professional? What are those memorable things in your career, in your schooling, in your projects, in your nonprofit work, whatever it is that you're doing? What experiences have helped define you as a person and a professional? Mine is literally my teaching philosophy statement is based on mine. My top experience was something that I did as an undergraduate, working on a documentary in the immediate aftermath of 9/11. And it was because of that particular project that consumed my life for the better part of a year that I knew that I wanted to get into teaching. And so I tell that story, that particular experience, it's literally the foundation of my teaching philosophy statement. And so if you had to build, I know not all of you are in academia, right? But that whole concept of like figuring out like what ground you stand on, who am I? Find those experiences. There's probably everybody has one, at least one. You probably have more than that. But jot those down, right? What are the things that really stand out? What are you passionate about or interested in? This is the fun question. Get outside of your career. Because guess what? We're human, right? We have interests outside of our careers. And you know what? It's okay to let other people know about that. I know that there's been a stigma for a very long time about keeping professional and personal separate. What we are experiencing right now is that it's okay to be a person outside of work. And career opportunities and workplaces are starting to become much more open to, yes, I have a social media account. I'm going to post about things I'm doing at work, but I'm also going to post about what my family is doing this weekend. Wherever your comfort level is in that kind of stuff. But like, it's okay to be a person outside of your career. And being able to merge those two things is going to give you a much more well-rounded appearance. Also makes you much more approachable. And to be able to, I started telling my students about things that I am doing outside of class, right? Because they need to know that I'm not just their professor. I'm a person. I'm a mom. I'm a musician, right? I have a lot of other things that I do. I'm a podcast host. I do a lot of other things, and they need to be aware of these things so they start to see me not just as their teacher, as the person who is issuing their grades, but the person who is a person, right? With a life outside of this university. And what do we do, right? So start thinking about what you're comfortable in including. Maybe it's just a hobby that you have that you want to start including in things. It doesn't have to be super personal, but if you're passionate about something outside of work, it's okay to let other people know that in a way that you feel comfortable. Okay, so make that list. What are you passionate about or interested in? What is your personal mission statement? Do you have one? Most people don't. So that's a good exercise too. Think about it. Can you sum up what your goal is in a sentence or two? Hint, it's not easy. I don't really have one. I don't have a full, complete personal mission statement because I have a teaching philosophy statement, and it's way too long to be a personal mission statement. But if you can get yourself to figure out, like, again, who are you, right? And who do you serve and how can I help? If you can sum that up into a couple of sentences, guess what? You have a personal mission statement. So think about that as something that you can lean on. And then these are two really personal questions. Who are you right now? If you had to write your biography right now, like to a one paragraph bio, maybe it's for a corporate website or whatever it is, write that bio for yourself, and then write that bio for yourself 5 years from now. Where do you want to be? One of my most interesting writing assignments that we do in one of our classes is having students, and it feels a little morbid, but having students write their own obituaries. It's a grounding experience to kind of give you some focus as to what do I want to accomplish with my life, right? And so if that doesn't feel comfortable to you, then maybe you want to write your bio for 5 years from now, for 10 years from now, right? And compare it to where you are right now. And then that's going to give you some suggestions as to, okay, what's my path to get from here to here? Like I tell my students, none of this is easy. I realize that. It requires a lot of introspection. I usually give my students some time to work on this and say, go out and go touch some grass after you do this, right? Because especially if you're an introspective thinker, you need some time to do this, but then let go of it and then come back to it so that you don't get completely introspective on it. But this is a really, really helpful exercise, regardless of where you are in your career. I usually do an audit of myself every 1 to 2 years. I just redid my brand and redid my website. I feel pretty comfortable with where things are right now, but I guarantee you I'm going to want to start switching some things up over the course of the next year. And these literally are the questions that I ask myself when I do this, because I find them to be very helpful. Okay. Again, ask for help if you need it, right? You cannot create a personal brand alone. You need the input of others around you. It is a team sport. As I tell my students, you cannot be creative in a vacuum. It's not possible. You need feedback. You need that support. So my encouragement to you is to, whatever of those questions that you feel like you might need some outside input for, don't be afraid to ask. Peers, family, friends, colleagues, any of those things. With my students, I say professors, right? Mentors, any of those people that you really, really trust. It's okay to go to them and ask those questions. You can also look at other people, professionals on social platforms. Obviously, I teach social media. I push this conversation back to social media a little bit more than probably a typical personal branding webinar would. But it's totally fine. In fact, it's one of the assignments. I say, think about what you want to do with your career and go find somebody with the job that you want and see how they're presenting themselves. What does their LinkedIn look like? What does their Instagram look like? Can you take inspiration from that? What kinds of things are they posting, right? You've probably heard the statement of dressing for the job that you want, not the job that you have. Do the same thing with your digital presence, right? Present yourself online for the job that you want if you're looking to grow, not the job that you have. And it's totally fine to take inspiration from other people. Just don't copy them, right? Because that's not authentic. You need to take the inspiration and put it into your own. And what does that mean for you, right? And here's the big thing. Again, do as I say, not as I do. Don't let overwhelm prevent you from taking a first step. When I redid my website, no joke, it was a 6-year process. And I spent 5.5 of those years just stressing out over what I wanted it to look and feel like. I wish I was joking. I am somebody who, as someone who teaches social media, my online presence is a big deal to me, both with my peers and with my students. And so how do I present myself online? And I couldn't decide, do I want this template or do I want these colors? And what's that feel that I want in that mix? And I was doing the audit and I kept doing the audit and not taking that first step. And so what did I finally have to do? The title of the slide. I had to ask for help. And I'm fortunate enough that I was able to bring somebody alongside me as I was going through that process who knows me pretty well and also happens to be a web developer, right? And so they walked me through the whole process of trying to figure this out. And together we crafted where I ended up. And so don't be afraid to take that step, particularly if you feel your wheels spinning. That's really easy to do as a creative, to just be like overwhelmed by too many decisions, right? Have somebody help you get over that hurdle. And you can always keep refining. Here's the other thing you need to think of, and I am the mom of a 3-year-old, so yes, I am bringing a Daniel Tiger reference. Some of you will get this. You can be more than one thing. It's okay. There's a cute little jingle that goes with that if you watch Daniel Tiger. But I think that's another thing that, is the bringing in, like, it's okay to be a person outside of work. It's okay to have more than one thing that you're interested in, that you're, Emily Wapnick calls it being a multi-potentialite, which I love. I love that terminology. And that's, you have interest in a lot of different things, and that's okay. That's okay. And I think sometimes trying to narrow that down to say, this is my brand, period, end of statement, gets us to a point where we just kind of spin out of control because we can't figure out where we want to be. And I'm here to say, you can be more than one thing. It's okay. You can be intentional with that. That's what I had to do. And so I'll show you that process here in just a minute. The first thing that you should do once you do all this audit is to attempt to write your own bio again. Okay. So you wrote one as a draft. You've written one for 5 or 10 years from now. So now let's put those together and write your bio for right now. Okay. This could be a short bio, maybe for your personal website, if you have one of those. Otherwise, think about there's an about statement on LinkedIn. that's a really great place to make a really strong first impression. So as you're putting all these things together, write that bio, try to get it down to like 3 to 5 sentences. Okay. Because let's be honest, people don't read online. So the shorter that you can make that, the tighter you can make it, the more concise you can make it, the more impact it's going to have. Again, conduct searches to look for people who have a presence that you admire. What do they include in their bios? And then use their inspiration as guidance, not the rule. What you will find out is that there are so many different variations on this that it's totally okay to put your own stamp on it. Nobody's going to tell you that you can't. And so this is where you start to get to showcase who you are, right? Be yourself. Think about what sets you apart. Maybe it's everybody has a writing voice and a tone, whether you know it or not, right? And so how do you lean into that? How do you describe yourself? This is the old elevator pitch. Remember those? That essentially you're just putting it into writing as opposed to putting it, actually talking to somebody. But once you memorize it and kind of get those talking points down, it comes in real handy at networking events. But think about those kinds of things. How could I summarize my bio in 3 to 5 sentences? And then here's the other thing. You might actually need more than one version of your bio. I always recommend starting with the short one first, because then you can expand on it later. I have 3 different bios. I have the short one that appears on the very beginning of my homepage that is just the introduction to who I am. I have the longer, more narrative bio that feels a little bit more like a storytelling. And then I have the formal bio that is the one that I submit when I speak at conferences or I'm presenting somewhere or those sorts of things. That's the one that actually appears on the MTSU website. So it's the same thing between the two. So start with your short one because I think it's harder to be concise, okay? And it also provides you a really nice outline to be able to work from to grow it out. But to start with, you might only just need that short little one, and that's okay. That's okay. You can just do that one. Eventually, you might need to expand it. Don't stress out over it right now. But here's the most important thing. This is one of my favorite quotes. It's from Robert Rose, who is a consultant based out of California. He's the co-host of a podcast that I've been listening to for a very long time. And this is the closing line from their podcast every single week. It's your story to tell. Tell it well. Nobody knows your story better than you. And what a better opportunity to own your own story as opposed to letting other people tell it for you. That makes sense? And sometimes this can be really personal work, right? It depends on where you are in your career, but if you can figure out what your story is, you are the best person to tell your own story. So take advantage of this opportunity and tell your own story. This is the most important part of the personal brand. Aesthetics are great. We're going to get to those next. But you have to know your story and tell your story in a way that connects with people. And that's where you should focus. Okay? Once you start kind of figuring out what that is, then you can deal with all the pretty stuff. And if you are somebody who likes to get into visual aesthetics and fonts, okay, yes, I am totally a font nerd. Don't laugh at me. I spend way too much time on this, right? And this is what hung me up on trying to launch my own website. I got stuck on the aesthetics, and that's not where the work starts. You have to do the work before you get to the aesthetics, because once you figure out who you are, the aesthetics come much easier. Right? So the first thing to think about, headshots. Yes, you all need one. You probably have one. They don't have to look like you're at the DMV. Okay. I know we like to shoot headshots with blue backgrounds and you're just kind of like, it's totally fine to have a headshot that shows your personality, but make sure you clearly show your face in some way. It can be slightly tilted. It can be tilted this way. That's fine, but make sure you show your face so that people recognize you when you show up at events. And then once you find the headshot that you like, use it everywhere. And the reason why I say that is because it makes it really easy for people to realize that that's also you on these other accounts. I just redid my headshots last April. I immediately changed everything. It's now my headshot on the MTSU website. It's now my headshot in our learning management system, D2L. It's now the primary headshot on my personal website. It's my profile image on every social media platform, right? Because immediately once people see that image, they're going to know it's you. Okay. Do that on everything that you want to be used professionally. The one change that I say here is because I don't use my Facebook account professionally. I use my Facebook account personally. It's locked down in that way. So guess what? My profile image on Facebook is different because it's not a professional account for me. So it's okay. I'm saying you can merge some things, but you can also delineate some things, and that's fine, right? If you want to go down the route of choosing a color palette, that's great, but you don't have to. It's really cool to be able to like cause some synergy between your personal business cards and your resume fonts and like that kind of stuff. Like that's fine. But if you don't want to like pick like these are my brand colors and have a brand guide for yourself, like you don't have to. You don't have to. It's great if that's something you're interested in, but you don't have to. If you are going to go for a color palette, I really encourage you to create a mood board. Pull in the things that you like. That's what I did when I went to my website developer and said, I really can't wrap my head around this. And so I sent them 5 websites that I thought, like, I love aspects of each of these websites. And literally my website is a merger of all 5 of those things. We took this concept and this concept and this concept and this concept and mashed it all together. And now it feels like me, right? So mood boards, if that's your thing, if you love Pinterest, this is for you. Go start pinning things on a board in Pinterest, right? And kind of keep all those things together. Finally, header images are important. Don't forget about those. That's a missed opportunity. LinkedIn has one, Facebook has one, Instagram does not have one, but some of the other new platforms like your Blue Skies, they have them, right? So don't miss out on that real estate. That's a really great opportunity to either continue your branding or to showcase something else you're interested in, right? Like my LinkedIn header image right now is a picture of me speaking in front of an audience. My Blue Sky header right now is of a stack of books that from my classes that I teach, right? But that adds some extra context when people stumble into my accounts for the first time as to who I am. Right? So you either want to be consistent across social platforms or use consistent brand elements or elements of who you are that might be able to help you with that. The 2 big questions that I get from my students all the time, and I'm just going to go ahead and answer them for you all. Can you integrate your personal brand with your professional one? Absolutely. The answer to that question is now yes, because you have personal and professional interests, and all of those things can be a part of your personal brand. If you're not incorporating all of those things, then you're going to feel like fractured all the time, right? You're not going to feel like yourself. The whole point of being a personal brand is to be you. So be you. The other thing, and this was again something I got hung up on, is it okay to make changes to your personal brand? Also, yes. Guess what? You're not going to be the same person 5 years from now that you are now, right? So as you grow and progress in your professional and personal life, your personal brand will naturally shift and change. It's gonna happen. You're gonna move from an entry-level career to a mid-level career to hopefully a senior level career, right? And your language, your use of certain terms, right? The way you want to position yourself, maybe the formality of your profile image, right? And your headshots, maybe those shift over time as well. It's totally fine. In fact, your personal brand should grow and evolve right along with you. Okay? That's the biggest chunk of this. Who are you? That's where you want to spend most of your time. Okay, so the last 2 questions we'll actually go through relatively quickly here. Who do you serve? Okay, so once you figure out who you are, this question becomes a lot easier, right? Who are you trying to reach? Because this is going to influence what kinds of things you will want to post and create on your digital platforms. So if you are looking for a job, you might want to be posting more about things that are happening in the industry, right? And putting those kinds of, yeah, did you know you can create content on LinkedIn? You can. It's not just a resume site. And that's a really great place to like look up things that are happening in the industry that you want to work in and post those kinds of things with your take. That's how you're going to start to get noticed, right? So who are you trying to reach? And then what do you want to be known for? This is fun. In academia and in certain areas of the industry, we call these the content pillars. So these are the topics that will be your primary areas of focus when you go to post something on your professional digital accounts, whatever those are. These are the things that you want to be known for. The ones that you see there, parenting stories, academic life, online trends, community involvement, and college football, those are my 5. Those are my 5 content pillars. Let me explain how I got there. Parenting stories. I'm recently a mom. I'm the mom of a 3-year-old daughter. I'm in my mid 40s, so I have some really interesting stories about being in my mid 40s parenting a toddler, right? I am looking for other people who are kind of in that similar landscape. And so being able to post content about being somebody in my mid 40s with a 3-year-old is going to attract people who might be in a similar situation, right? Academic life should probably be a no-brainer. I work at a university. I'm trying to make connections with my peers who are doing similar research. Another note, I'm also a doctoral student. So I am a student here at MTSU as well. I'm a doctoral student in the College of Education. And so I'm trying to connect with people potentially for research purposes as well, right? So I have to address that part of my life. Online trends, that's the area that I teach in. I teach digital trends, digital media, interactive media, emerging media. I need to post things that are happening in my industry to be able to show that I know what I'm talking about. Community involvement is something I'm very passionate about. Rachel mentioned at the beginning that I run an organization and an event that focuses on bringing people together in this world of digital content here in the Middle Tennessee area to talk about things that we are experiencing. That's something I've always been very passionate about, and it's something I want to continue to be known for. And then, okay, you're saying, wait, college football, how does that fit? Believe it or not, I actually co-host a college football podcast, and we've been doing this for 13 years. We just finished our 13th season, and we will launch season 14 this summer. That was actually my background. My background was I was a college football editor and writer. And so that's something that I am personally passionate about. It's my hobby. Right? So go back to that conversation we just had. That needs to be a part of who I am, because otherwise that podcast doesn't make sense. So do you see how you kind of can lay these things out? Once you know who you are, these pillars are a lot easier to outline. If you don't do that work first and try to go here first, you're going to spin your wheels. So figure out who you are. And then where do these things line up? Here's my other tip for you is that if you try to do more than 5, you're going to be overwhelmed. Okay. If you're trying to hit more than 5 areas of focus, you're going to be overwhelmed, and people aren't really going to know exactly what to make of everything that you're posting. Right. So I'm not saying that I am the best at this, because I'm not. I do a pretty good job with the academic life and online trends and the community involvement, not so much on the parenting and college football on every platform. I'm just now starting to post oh yeah, hey, I host this other podcast on LinkedIn. And that's something I need to get over. Right. So again, just because I teach this stuff doesn't mean I always listen to my own advice. But try your best to try to figure out what those things are. Right. And then once you figure that out, the goal is to be authentic and consistent. The most important thing is to be the real you in every aspect of your online presence. Your posts should feel like you are saying them, that you are talking to somebody, right? Because trying to be someone you're not will lead to creative burnout. You will be exhausted. So the one thing that everybody's looking for, right? Employers, future clients, social media, is a consistent image. An image there is not necessarily visuals. An image there is, again, your brand. Are you being consistent across the professional social media platforms that you are on? And if you do that, then you have more control. Remember how you're turning your brand over? Your brand is really what other people say about you. If you're being consistent, you're going to control that conversation a little bit more clearly than if you're just posting all over the place. Okay? We're starting to get some focus here. Last question. Whoops. I went too far. Back up. Oh. Uh-oh. Okay, that slide's gone. Connect with others. So the last question is, how can you help? Okay. So connect with others. Find potential connections to reach out to. Once you kind of have this all kind of to a point that you feel comfortable with it, start looking to build your network, right? We sometimes still go to networking events. I know we've moved a lot of that stuff online. Look at LinkedIn. 100%. I am a huge LinkedIn fan right now. There's some amazing things happening there. So look at people who you're connected to. Look at your networks. Look at people who look at the names of the people who are on this webinar. Okay. How can they help you? How can you help them? Do you have a mutual connection? Right? And always remember, I am like, this is one of those like hills I will die on. Keep the social in social media. The absolute worst thing that you can do on social media is to broadcast whatever it is you want to broadcast and then never respond to anybody. The whole reason it was called social media was because it was meant to be a social platform. It's not a broadcast platform. That's what it's becoming, I realize, but social, interact, talk to people. My friend Dave Delaney says it's okay to talk to strangers. So you see a post that you like, leave a comment. It's so, because what's going to happen is if there's somebody you really want to connect with and you are consistently interacting with the content that they are posting and you are authentic and not using an AI automated response in your comments to people, they're going to start to notice you. I've done this multiple times. I just connected with somebody who is way higher up on the stratosphere than I am because I started commenting on the posts of his he would post his podcast episodes and I love his podcast and I started commenting on things. And so then when I sent him a LinkedIn request, a connection request about 5 weeks into this, he responded back when I sent the request, said, "Hey, it's great to connect with you. I look forward to continuing the conversation." That's a win. Right. And the only way that he knew who I was we had some mutual connections and I started showing up on his stuff. Okay. It works. It still works, particularly on LinkedIn. So comment, like, and share on posts of those whom you admire or aspire to connect with, because you might connect with them, but you're also going to present a stronger sense of expertise to the people around you. Okay. And then again, don't be shy to reach out to someone that you put up there on that pedestal. They might not respond. That's okay. That's not your fault. You tried, right? My friend Libby Ward, who is a mommy influencer up in, if you're the mom of littles, like, you're going to want to follow her on Instagram. She's fabulous. Her handle is Diary of an Honest Mom. I got to meet her last spring at a conference here in Nashville, and she said this during her workshop, and I just I have it printed out on my desk. Scatter the seeds and don't take it personally if they don't work out. It's really easy to take that stuff personally, right? When you go all in on this stuff and they don't respond, right? And you're like, "Oh, I'm not good enough. I don't matter enough." It's really easy to fall down there. It's very easy to fall there. It's not you, it's them, right? Right? To flip that old adage on its head. It just might not work, right? But if you don't keep scattering the seeds, nothing will work. You have to take that risk and just realize that not everything is going to work out, but the ones that do were meant to work out for a reason. Okay. Okay, so here's a couple quick personal brand examples of some people who are doing some really interesting work with their personal brands. So the best personal brands have a distinctive voice. They emphasize transparency and authenticity. This is all repeat, right? With undergraduate students, you have to repeat stuff a couple times. So sharing expertise in their fields, but also adding their personal interests and passions, creating that distinct brand experience through a tagline, logo, brand palette, or presence. That's all the stuff we just talked about, right? Putting it all on one slide. So that's what you're aiming for when you put it all together. Let me give you 2 examples. This is my friend Joe Polizzi. He lives up in Cleveland. He is a serial entrepreneur. He is, if that name is familiar to you and you work in the marketing space, he is the founder of the Content Marketing Institute. And these are his headshots over the years. Want to take a stab as to what his favorite color is? Yeah, it's orange. And he wears orange every single time he's on stage. Every single time. Guess what his primary brand color is? It's orange. Do you see how this works? Every time you see orange, a lot of people think Joe Polizzi. He's owned that color because it's a different color. That's not one that people tend to gravitate towards, when it comes to branding. And so he has owned that space and made it a part of who he is. Every organization, he's started 3 companies now, and every single one of his companies, the primary brand color is orange. And you immediately know that it's Joe. Now you can see this is also a great example of how your personal brand evolves, right? And the ways that he does it. There's not a good picture. He actually has orange shoes too that he wears sometimes on stage. So it's even that subtle that he'll wear the orange shoes and not everything else. But this is a really great way, thinking outside of just the digital, right? There's a reason why I'm wearing a blue shirt today. Guess what one of my primary brand colors is? It's navy blue, right? So I'm wearing, again, living in your brand space, right? To be able to kind of create that whole cohesive presence for yourself. This is my, I actually don't know Brienne. Brienne Fleming is a faculty member at the University of Florida. And she has just the most fun personality ever. She merges digital marketing with 90s and early 2000s pop culture. So if that's a merging of your interests, you want to go follow Brienne. She's also a new mom. But this is what I mean about like giving yourself a palette to work with, because the top is her LinkedIn, right? And you can see that kind of fluorescent gold, that fluorescent pink heart, which matches what you see over in the upper right hand corner, which is one of her graphics that she used to use on Twitter. She doesn't use Twitter for this anymore. She does it on LinkedIn, but this was one of her older tweets that you see. There's that subtle like glow in the Q4. She's tying that back into her brand, and then you see the font in the graphic. Then look down and look at the font in her website. Do you see how it all connects and everything has that shade of purple? You don't have to be blatant with this. I mean, Joe is pretty like, okay, it's in your face. He wears orange. We get it. Brienne is much more subtle, but it's consistent and it's coherent. Anytime I'm scrolling through LinkedIn now and I see this kind of cutesy font, right? I know it's Brienne, and I don't even have to look to see who's posting it because I recognize the way that she presents information. Okay, so these are the kinds of things and the kinds of pieces that once you get the hang of this, you can start toying with these kinds of things. I am just now starting to get into this with the idea of my name mark, right? That I'm starting to use that everywhere. So the name mark you see in the bottom right-hand corner of all these slides is the same one that I use on my website. It's also the same one on the business cards that I'm getting done, right? So like trying to like be consistent in that way can be as simple as choosing the same font and using it the same way every single time. Okay, so let's get down to business. This is what everybody wants to know. What are some specific things that you can do? Okay, let's start with the obvious. LinkedIn. First thing, good introduction and headline. Okay, so headline's that thing that appears after your name. It doesn't have to be your job title. You can personalize that however you want. The introduction is that about section, right? And we've already worked on that back when we were working on our personal audit, writing that bio. So that should already be done for you. Copy and paste that there. Another good tip here is to make sure that you have contact information updated, right? Make sure there is a way for somebody to contact you. Usually an email address is good. If a thing I have to tell my students all the time now, and this should be common sense, but it's not. If you're posting your resume anywhere online publicly, please remove all contact information from it, like your home address. You might want to say that you live in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, but please don't include your home address and phone number. Because that's just not a great way to maintain your personal privacy. Okay. Email address is great. City is great if you feel comfortable with that. But otherwise, sometimes you can just say Middle Tennessee. Okay. If somebody really needs your full resume, they can reach out and contact you and you can send them the real thing. Okay. Leveraging endorsements and recommendations. Yeah, these are a thing on LinkedIn. Remember those? You can ask people to leave you an endorsement, and you can go recommend people for things. Like, don't forget that exists. Those can be really valuable. It's essentially testimonials. And it's really easy. You just send the request via LinkedIn. And again, ask your colleagues for recommendations. Updating your profile and header images. We already talked about that. Sharing your content, including tags for other people and organizations. If you're sharing somebody else's content, include them in the tag, right? Make sure they're tagged in posts. Go comment on other posts. Spend a few minutes a day scrolling through your feed and commenting on some things. And then this is a cool trick, and I'll show it to you after I'm done sharing my screen. Did you know that every single LinkedIn profile has a built-in QR code that if you don't have your business cards, you can connect with somebody in person simply by going to your QR code. I'll show you how to access that when I get out of this. So you know how to do that because it's a cool party trick. I went to a conference in October with a bunch of actually digital marketers, and I was the one that had to show them that this already existed, and we all connected on LinkedIn in less than 5 minutes. It was fantastic. If you're more aesthetically oriented and you want to create a professional presence on Instagram, here are some recommendations. This is primarily for my students because this is where they like to be. I have to talk them into LinkedIn. I'm getting there. Writing a good bio, right? Making sure your bio is succinct. Don't overuse emojis or use emojis as bullet points. This is an accessibility issue. If somebody is using a screen reader, it actually reads out the name of the emoji before your text. I don't know if you knew that. Updating your profile image to go through exactly what we just talked about, right? With making that different. Link in bio tool. There are tons of tools out there to be able to add more links. And now Instagram actually has made it so you can add more links. But whatever links you need to add, be a little bit more professional with it. Add those there. Showcase the blend of personal and professional that you've already kind of sorted out. Use stories to share content that you're interested in without cluttering your main feed. So this is like stuff that's like super time sensitive. Something that's going on this weekend that somebody viewing your account 5 weeks from now is not going to care about. Stories is a great place to do that. If you're using story highlights, and Instagram's changing this, but for now, make sure your story highlights have clear labels so people know what they mean. And then consider changing to a creator account if you're really serious about this stuff on Instagram, because there's personal accounts and there's business accounts. But did you know there's a middle level called creator account? And that's what I'm on. So you don't have all the ad tools and the business tools, but you get better analytics on stuff. So if you're really looking to kind of grow your presence on Instagram, that is a great way to do it without getting into like all of the super crazy business ads, all those sorts of things. I love my creator account. I don't do enough with it. I blame being a mom for that. And but it's really, really helpful to be able to have those things. Personal website, if you happen to go there, this is where my website ended up, right? Making a really strong first impression on your homepage, making sure that people know exactly who you are from the very first moment that they interact with your page. Make sure you include either an about page or a section so people can learn more about you, have a portfolio of your work available, and then include a way to contact you. And this is what I was mentioning about your resume, right? There's automated contact forms that you can set up on your website. That's what I have. Or include an email address, but please don't put your phone number. Please don't put your mailing address. That's just not safe. And if you're going to include your email address, don't include your email address in a way that somebody can very easily copy and paste it and add it to a spam list. This is the reason why you see email and then like the brackets with the word at in it and spaces, and then like dot is the same way in brackets and dot. That's the reason why people do that, is so that you can't very easily copy and paste it and dump it into an email list. Okay. So consider that. I use a contact form on my site. Yes, I do still get spam on it, but it's a lot easier than dealing with spam in my personal email. Okay. Last couple notes. Consistency in your social media handles can be extremely helpful. So I am at Carla Fox everywhere. You can find me on every platform with that handle. Yes, even though I'm going to show you the cool QR code trick, business cards still extremely relevant. Extremely relevant. Carry them with you. I wear my keys around my neck because I'm the forgetful professor. Guess what I have in my ID? I have a stack of business cards. I carry my business cards with me everywhere, right? Even with college students, you'd be amazed the number of times I hand out business cards in class. So they are absolutely still relevant, despite what the world is going to tell you. Have at least a few. And then work on, again, your elevator pitch, right? Who you are, who you serve, and how you can help. You've already done that work. Be able to articulate it if you end up at a networking event. I'll end with one of my favorite quotes from Brene Brown. True belonging doesn't require you to change who you are. It requires you to be who you are. Personal branding is not about changing yourself. It's about living into who you already are and who you are attaining to be, who you are trying to be. And if you can put all of those things together, you're well on your way. And then if you get around to the aesthetics, that's just an added like icing on the cake at this point. I know that was a lot of information. I essentially just gave you an entire semester's class in about 45 minutes. So here is my contact information. I am an instructor in interactive media. Like I said, you can reach me everywhere at Carla Fox. That's my MTSU email address. And yes, I actually, again, see, personal branding. I created a page on my website that has these slides available for you to download. I will also send them to Rachel, and she will send them out with the recording of this webinar as well. Let me stop sharing my screen. I'll show you that party trick, and then I can get to some questions here. Okay, so here's the party trick. Let me open LinkedIn. Hi to all of you that just connected with me on LinkedIn. I will get to you after class today. Okay, I don't know. Let's see if we can see this. So you see the search bar up here at the top? Click in the search bar. When you click in the search bar, you'll see a lot of people. Do you see this little QR icon right here? Tap that. Guess what? There's my QR code. Okay? That's how you can find the party. You just open the app, tap the search, tap the little code in the corner, and then you've got that. Okay? I will turn it back over to Rachel for questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much,
Sure.
Professor Fox. It was a great, great presentation. We do have some questions.
Of course.
One of the first ones that was asked was, can you present yourself differently across different platforms?
You can. It gets tiring though. I'm not gonna lie, right? If you're trying to identify, if you're trying to present yourself as like a bunch of different personas, it's exhausting for you internally. And that's why I've started to embrace my mom side here on campus, because I don't want to be a mom at home and a professor on campus. I am both simultaneously at all points in my life. So that's a decision that you can make. I got tired of trying to separate mom life from professor life. And I just was like, you know what? My students can know I'm a mom. I don't care. And so that's been an easier solution. I do understand there are certain circumstances where that does make sense to have delineation. But it's just really up to you and your personal preference. I hope that answered it. Rachel, you're muted. I can't hear you.
We've also got a few folks here that are saying already just great presentation.
Thank you all.
So there was just a comment on here that I just thought was interesting. It's, she says she's been running a podcast on LinkedIn, and it was so easy to carry over my experiences with Twitch into this podcast. Is that something that I don't even know what Twitch is? Can you tell us?
Yeah. So Twitch is a live streaming platform that uses video. You can go just audio only, but it's kind of like if you've been on. It's just another live streaming platform. Really, it's used a lot by gamers to live stream themselves playing games. So if you're wondering what your kids are doing on YouTube, if they're not on YouTube, they're on Twitch, right? That's the other platform. And so, yeah, once you learn skills on one platform, it's really easy to transfer them over. So like once you get comfortable with like posting on LinkedIn, like it's going to get easier. Or if you're writing a newsletter on LinkedIn to like branch out to your own personal newsletter, like that transition is just learning the tool. You've already got the methodology down, right? It's just a matter of settling into your rhythm. But yeah, no, that's cool. LinkedIn's doing some really amazing stuff right now. My reach on everything that I'm posting on LinkedIn is through the roof. And it's not really anything that I'm doing. It's just the way that a lot of people are migrating over to LinkedIn right now. They're looking for that professional community, and they're just doing some really incredible things with some of their tools and with newsletters in particular. Joe Polizzi actually started a LinkedIn newsletter and has grown it exponentially, and uses that newsletter as a way to actually drive people back to his actual newsletter when he can get their email addresses and own that data. First party data, everybody, we're getting there. But like grabbing all of that data for himself. So he uses the LinkedIn newsletter to like show the first like couple sections. And then he has a call to action to sign up for his full newsletter. And then you get the whole thing in your inbox. But the cool thing about LinkedIn newsletters is when you publish it, everybody who's subscribed also gets an email. So you're hitting them twice because you'll get a notification in LinkedIn and you'll get the notification in their inbox. It's absolute marketing goldmine. If that's something that you're interested in. Again, I wish I had the time. I would totally be on LinkedIn newsletters if I had any more time in my day.
It's really interesting. Let's see, there was another question.
Sure.
Do you have any tips on prioritizing your content pillars?
Ooh, where are you in your journey? Right? Like what is the most important thing to you right now? If you had to rank them from 1 to 5 personally, what does that look like for you? So if you're looking to get a job, you're probably going to want to prioritize industry. If you're comfortable in your job and you want to become a more well-rounded person, then you might want to prioritize some more of the interests that you have, right? To kind of bring that to people who might not know that you have an interest outside of software development, right? So whatever that looks like for you, wherever you are in your career, and that's the thing with the personal brand, you can actually change that order as things change, right? As you feel more comfortable, if you decide you're going to look for that senior level position, then maybe you start posting more about your industry. Or if you decide you're comfortable where you are, then you're going to post more about the stuff that you're doing on the side. You know, that you've taken up knitting. And I say that kind of in jest, but like I have 2 friends that have like outstanding professional careers, and a lot of their content right now is about their knitting because it brings just a different, like, that's their hobby. They're comfortable in their careers, and that's something that they're very interested in. And I had no idea, right? So you never know who you're gonna pick up if you start expressing yourself.
Well, that's interesting you brought that up because it kind of leads into this next question that we
Yeah.
have. How do you recommend advertising your personal brand when you work a job in one industry, but your dream job is in another industry? My concern is job security until I can transition.
Yeah, that does get tricky. The one thing I will say is LinkedIn has changed this. That that open to work badge that people put on their profiles. They've actually changed that so you can determine who in your feed sees that. So you can turn that off. Like if you're coworkers and you don't want them to know that you're looking for a job, you can turn that off so that they don't see it. It's a labor intensive process. So, but give that some thought. I think that's live now, or it's coming out in beta. I don't remember. I read so much stuff that I know it's either out or it's coming. Because that was something that people had asked for, right? To be able to look for a job without like everybody knowing. I think if you're looking to move, I think it's a gradual shift, right? I think you lean into where you are now and you start slowly incorporating these other aspects so that you slowly start building up that different industry that you're interested in without just completely over. Because if you started immediately posting about all this other stuff, like, and enough people notice, red flags would go up, right? So I think it's a matter of kind of bringing it in a little bit at a time until you get to the point that you're kind of almost equal with what you're posting about, and then nobody's gonna second guess it at all, because that's just who you are. So yeah, I would just start subtly adding it in to your rhythm. Like if you're posting twice a week, then maybe you're posting about that particular new topic once a month to start, right? So if you're posting 8 times a month, one of them is about the other industry that you're interested in, and then get a little bit further on and maybe it's 3, right? So like just start kind of building it in that way, in a way that just feels really natural. Hopefully that'll work for you.
Organically. I am just starting out with both my personal brand and professional brand.
Okay.
Do you have any recommendations on which social platforms to prioritize, or is it more important to be consistent across all platforms?
My number one thing is to and I say this to clients that my students work with as well, prioritize one and do one really well first, because otherwise you're just going to be really, really overwhelmed. So my number one starting point right now, depending on what kind of career, if you're getting into a more aesthetic creative career, you probably want to look at Instagram first. If you're looking just kind of career in general, LinkedIn 100% is where you want to go. The only way I would say Instagram first is because if you were getting into some sort of aesthetic creator, video production, like that kind of stuff, Instagram makes more sense there because that's where those people are. Everybody else is on LinkedIn. And if you have a good LinkedIn profile and you're posting consistently there, it actually can take the place of your personal website. You don't necessarily have to have a personal website if you're doing a really good job of outlining who you are on LinkedIn. You can use that kind of as a personal website and link off to some of your other platforms. So I would work on LinkedIn first to establish that primary presence for yourself if you don't have a personal website, and then look at Instagram right now. I think it's probably your number 2.
That's good information. We have time for one more question,
Okay.
and we've got one right here. It's what do you recommend to maximize who you want most to know your professional and personal brand? I'm going to repeat that question.
Okay.
What do you recommend to maximize who you want most to know about your professional and personal brand instead of generalizing through social media?
That's a tough question right now, because everything is so driven by the algorithm, which is where I'm sure this question is getting at, right? You're posting out there, and then how do you get out there at all? It's not easy to break through the clutter out there right now. I am still a fan. We're starting to shift back to personal websites. People posting on blogs is becoming a thing again, particularly in creative fields, because you own that. And then you can leverage that on a bunch of different platforms. Otherwise, and LinkedIn, but like LinkedIn still has an algorithm, right? It's more about being consistent. One of the things that I have a nonprofit that I used to work with, that we didn't put out a lot of content, but we published that content at the same time every week. It landed in everybody's inbox at 8 a.m. on Wednesdays. And it was just a short little newsletter. But you know what? People got used to that. And if that newsletter didn't hit at 8 o'clock on a Wednesday, I got phone calls. Not even joking. People called me. And that's the dream, right? To only be publishing once a week and to have people calling you saying, where is it? Like, hi, as a nonprofit, that's like, ooh, love it. So if you don't have the time or the energy to try to beat that algorithm, be consistent that I always post Wednesdays at 8 a.m. and you'll start attracting the people. They'll start figuring that out. Crumble Cookies on Instagram has this down to a science. They publish their menu every Sunday night at 7 o'clock. Ask me how I know. Right?
Right.
I don't go to Crumble Cookie very often, but like I know they post their menu every Sunday night at 7 o'clock because guess what I'm usually doing at 7 o'clock on Sunday nights? I'm waiting for my daughter to get out of the bathtub and I'm scrolling Instagram and I see their menu every single week at that time, right? So if you can't hit doing it a bunch, be very consistent on one piece of content at a very specific time and people will start to notice if it's not there.
That is fantastic. And I just want to thank you so much, Professor Fox, for being here.
Of course.
And just taking the time. You have given us a lot of really good information, getting a lot of great presentations in the comments section. So, so appreciate it. And I also want to tell everybody else, thank you so much for being here today. Just so you know, the webinar has been recorded. Everyone who registered for the webinar will get a link to the recording. Professor Fox, like she mentioned, is graciously given us a copy of her presentation. So I'll attach that as well whenever I send out the email. It usually takes a couple of days for me to get that link out, but just be watching for it. And just so you all know, we do have another webinar coming up on March 27th. Keisha Craddock will be presenting the topic Preventing Disease with Diet. If you're interested, please go ahead and register on our website at mtalumni.com. And I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon. Thanks again, Professor Fox. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye, everybody.